Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar on ISO 9001 Quality Management System, Remote Implementation and Certification. The COVID-19 pandemic is unprecedented in modern times and profoundly changed the way businesses are run and fundamentally alter management practices. It will also provide the significant opportunity for implementation, auditing, and certification of management systems as per ISO standards. This webinar is conducted in collaboration with Credential Global, our online ISO training partner. You can have more information about them on the website www.credentialsglobal.com. I'm pleased to be here. My name is Sandeep. I'm a chartered engineering and management consulting professional with 30 plus years of extensive industry experience. I have functional expertise in strategic management, operational excellence, system analysis and development, management systems and sustainability standards, risk assessment, technical regulations, conformity assessment, and accreditation. The agenda of this webinar is going to be Introduction to Standard Certification Council, setting the context, overview of the standard ISO 9001, benefits of being certified organization, essential steps to ISO 9001 certification, performing a remote implementation and audits of ISO 9001, ISO 9001 2015 documentation toolkit, and finally we'll see how much does it cost. Please allow me to introduce our company, Standard Certification Council. Standard Certification Council is a leading independent provider of business advisory and assurance services, including management system certification, training, verification, and validation to national and international schemes, standards, and frameworks. Standard Certification Council specializes in the management system standard certification, European regulatory directives compliance, sustainability reporting frameworks, and process improvement models for software development and information technology services management. It is also training partner in India for Global Reporting Initiative. Our mission is to assist our customers in operating their policies and programs to support their sustainable development goals by providing committed, cost-effective, and solution-oriented business advisory and assurance services. Our vision is to be the most admired business advisory and assurance service provider. Aim of this webinar is to demonstrate how certification of your quality management system can be achieved remotely without compromising on the requirements of the standard, depth of inquiry, or evidence required. Let's see what is a standard. The standard is a framework on which you base your management system. It is not designed to replace but enhance the existing one. The International Standard for Quality Management System, we can also call it QMS, is called ISO 9001. It was first published by the International Organization for Standardization in 1987. Before it could become an internationally recognized standard, ISO 9001 had to be agreed upon and accepted by majority of the ISO member nations. The most recent update is ISO 9001 2015, which was launched in September 2015. Striving towards quality and customer satisfaction is the mission of every modern company. ISO 9001 provides a framework on how to achieve this, and the first step in the implementation is to really understand what the standard requires. This presentation is designed to help top management and employees in the organization that decide on establishment and maintain an ISO 9001 2015 based quality management system and clear up any misconception regarding the standard requirement. ISO 9001 2015 quality management system requirements. This is the only ISO 9000 series standard for which certification can be gained, intended for use in any organization regardless of size, type, or product, including service. It provides a number of quality management system requirements which an organization needs to fulfill to achieve customer satisfaction. It includes a requirement for the continual improvement. ISO 9000-2015 Quality Management System, it is a fundamentals and vocabulary. It covers the basics of quality management systems and also contains the core language of ISO 9000 series of standard, a guidance document used for reference to understand terms and vocabulary related to quality management system. ISO 9004-2018 gives the guidelines for enhancing an organization's ability to achieve sustained success. This guidance is consistent with the quality management system principles given in ISO 9000-2015. ISO 9000-2018 provides self-assessment tool to review the extent to which the organization has adopted the concepts in this document. ISO 9004-2018 is applicable to any organization regardless of its size, type, or activity. ISO 9001 aims to provide a practical and workable quality management system for improving and monitoring all areas of your business. Achieving the ISO 9000 standard is not about establishing a set of procedures that are complicated and difficult to manage. The aim is to provide a workable management system that is suitable for your organization. With the right support and the knowledge of your employees, you will end up with a system that will improve all areas of your organization. Implementing an effective and robust ISO 9001 quality management system will help you to focus on the important areas of your business and improve efficiency. The management processes that are established throughout your business will provide a sound foundation leading to increased productivity and profit. This in turn will improve your customer acquisition and retention. Some of the main benefits of ISO 9001 certification include it is suitable for both small and large organizations, better internal management, less wastage, increase in efficiency, productivity, and profit, improved customer retention and acquisition, consistent outcomes which are measured and monitored. It's globally recognized standard and it is also compatible with other ISO standards. ISO 9001-2015 standard is recognized worldwide and your customers will understand the benefits of working with companies that are ISO 9001 certified. In fact, some of your customers will only do business with certified companies because it gives them assurance that your management systems are constantly assessed and improved. Now let's look into 7 principles of quality management. There are certain concepts which we need to understand in order to get into details of ISO 9000 standard. Principle number 1, customer focus. The primary focus of any quality management system is to meet customer requirements and strive to exceed customer expectations. Principle number 2, leadership. Leaders at all levels establish unity of purpose and direction and create conditions in which people are engaged in achieving the quality objectives of the organization. Principle number 3, engagement of people. It is essential for the organization that all people are competent, empowered, and engaged in delivering value. Competent, empowered, and engaged people throughout the organization enhance its capability to create value. Principle 4, process approach. Consistent and predictable results are achieved more effectively and efficiently when activities are understood and managed as interrelated processes that function as a coherent system. Principle number 5, improvement. Successful organizations have an ongoing focus on improvement. Principle number 6, evidence-based decision making. Decisions should be based on the analysis and evaluation of data and information are likely to be produce desired results. Principle number 7, relationship management. For sustained success, organizations manage the relationship with interested parties such as suppliers. Successful businesses are those that take necessary precautions to mitigate against risk. One of the key changes in the 2000 version of ISO 9000 is the establishment of systematic approach to risk management. Rather than treating it as a standalone component of a QMS, the updated sum of the parts approach sees it no longer separated from the whole. While the risk is often thought of as a detrimental, risk-based thinking can help businesses to identify opportunities also, thereby putting positive spin on what is traditionally viewed as a business negative. Organizations need to identify risk in their processes and to their businesses, both internally and externally. While it is not always possible to circumvent external risks such as banking crisis, Brexit, external currency fluctuations, or COVID-19, it is incumbent upon leadership to proactively take whatever measures are within their remit and power to minimize their impact. Your organization should identify internal and external risk, both positive and negative, and decide how they should be addressed when developing processes to improve outputs and mitigate against undesirable outcomes. ISO 9001 is based on the Plan, Do, Check Act. We can also call it PDCA cycle, also known as the Deming cycle. The PDCA cycle can be applied not only to the management system as a whole, but also to each individual element to provide an ongoing focus on continuous improvement. ISO 9001 says that every QMS process should be structured using the PDCA model. This means that every process should be planned, implemented, operate, and maintained, that is, do, monitored, audited, and reviewed, that is, checked and improved upon, that's act. Process is defined as a set of interrelated or interacting activities that use both tangible and intangible inputs to deliver an intended result. The tangible inputs like material and equipments, and intangible inputs like data and knowledge. All organizations use processes to achieve their objectives. The process approach includes establishing these processes to operate as an integrated and unified system and can be applied to any organization and any management system regardless of type, size, or complexity. Now let us look into the process approach fundamentals. The management system integrates processes which it both monitors and measures to achieve objectives. Processes define interrelated activities and checks to deliver intended outputs. Detailed planning and controls are defined and documented as and when required within the context of the organization. In accordance with the requirement of ISO 9001:2015, the following sequence of actions provide examples of how an organization may choose to build and control the processes of its QMS. Your organization should follow all steps in the process approach. Performance then can be managed and improved by applying PDCA cycle. ISO 9001 is made of 10 sections known as clauses. As with most of other ISO management system standards, the requirements of ISO 9001 that need to be satisfied are specified in clauses 4.0 to 10.0. Unlike most other ISO management system standards, an organization must comply with all of the requirements in clauses 4.0 to 10.0. They cannot declare one or more clauses are being not applicable to them. Clause number 4, context of the organization. 4.1, this clause brings new requirements compared to the 2008 version of the standard and requires the organization to determine all internal and external issues that may be relevant to the achievement of the objectives of the QMS itself. This includes all elements that are and may be capable of affecting these objectives and outcomes in the future. Clause number 4.2, understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. Due to the effect that interested parties may have on the organization, in terms of quality of product and services, customer satisfaction, and statutory and regulatory requirements. The standard requires the organization to determine interested parties relevant to the QMS and the needs and expectations. 4.3, determining the scope of the QMS is one of the main milestones in the implementation. The scope must be examined and defined considering the internal and external issues, interested parties, their needs and expectations, as well as legal and regulatory compliance obligations. Additional required considerations for QMS scope and products, services, and organizational size, nature, and complexity. The scope and the justified exclusions must be kept as a documented information. 4.4, quality management system and its processes. The organization needs to establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve its QMS, including the processes needed and the interactions in accordance with the requirement of the standard. This is where the process approach comes into action. The organization will need to determine inputs and outputs of the processes, sequence and interaction of the processes, and resources needed, and the responsibilities, and ensure the effectiveness of the processes. In addition, organization will have to maintain necessary documented information to support the operation of the processes and keep records to evidence that the process were carried out as planned. Clause number 5, leadership. 5.1, leadership and commitment. The QMS implementation is your strategic decision that demonstrates your commitment to development and application of the QMS and continual improvement of its effectiveness. This commitment must be demonstrated through informing the organization about the importance of fulfilling customer requirements, compliance with legal and other requirements, establishing quality policy and objectives, conducting management reviews, and providing needed resources. 5.2, quality policy is a high-level document containing statements about the general direction of the organization and its commitment to the quality and customer satisfaction. It provides a framework for quality objectives. Meeting compliance and regulatory factors is obviously a key element. Finally, and vitally, the policy must provide a commitment to the continual improvement of the QMS and its results. Critically, the quality policy must be maintained as documented information, be communicated within the organization, and be available to all interested parties. 5.3, responsibilities, roles, and authorities. Responsibilities and authorities must be precisely defined and communicated to all hierarchical levels of the organization. In specific situations, for example, seasonal fluctuations of labor force or emergency situations, it is necessary to precisely document and communicate authorities and especially the responsibilities of temporarily employed workers. Clause number 6, planning. 6.1, actions to address risk and opportunities. When planning the QMS, the organization will have to consider context of the organization and the needs and expectations of interested parties in order to determine risk and opportunities that need to be addressed. The purpose of addressing the risk and opportunities is to ensure that the QMS will achieve the intended results, enhance desirable effects, and achieve improvements. The actions have to be planned and implemented in the QMS and later evaluated for the effectiveness. 6.2, quality objectives and planning to achieve them. The standard requires top-level management to establish quality objectives for appropriate functions and departments in the organization. It could be human resources, production, purchase, technology, etc. Quality objectives must be measurable, quantitative, and timed. They must be in line with the quality policy so it can be determined whether objectives are met and if not, what should be done. 6.3, planning changes. When the organization determines the need for change to the QMS, the changes should be carried out in a planned manner. This includes considering their purpose and consequences, the integrity of the QMS, availability of resources, and allocation of responsibilities and authorities. Clause number 7, support. 7.1, resources. The standard requires the organization to determine and provide resources for the establishment, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement of the quality management system, taking into account the capabilities and constraint of existing internal resources and the need to obtain additional resources for external providers. Resources to be obtained include people, infrastructure, environment for operation of the processes, monitoring and measuring resources, and organizational knowledge. 7.2, competence. The organization needs to determine the necessary competence of its employees and ensure those employees are competent on the basis of appropriate education, training, and experience. This means that organization will need to have a process for determining the necessary competence and achieving it through trainings or other means. 7.3, awareness. Awareness is closely related to competence in the standard. Employees must be made aware of the quality policy and its content, any current and future impacts that may affect their task, what their personal performance means to the QMS and its objective, including the positives or improved performance, and what the implication of poor performance may be to the QMS. 7.4, communication processes. For internal and external communication need to be established within the QMS. The key elements that need to be decided and actioned are what needs to be communicated, when it needs to be communicated, how it should be done, who needs to receive the communication, and who will communicate. It should be noted here that any communication output should be consistent with the related information and content generated by the QMS for the sake of consistency. 7.5, documented information. QMS documentation is comprised not only of the documents and records required explicitly by the standard, but also of the documents and records the organization finds necessary to execute its activities and processes. The volume of the documentation is affected by many factors. It will depend on the size of the organization and the complexity of its processes. Also, product and services, the organization's compliance obligations, and by the competence of the employees. The standard requires that the documented information created or updated in the scope of QMS must be properly identified and described, and also considering its content presentation and media used. All documented information must go under proper review and approval procedures to ensure it is fit for its intended purpose. For proper control of documented information, the organization must consider the provision of processes regarding the distribution, retention, access, usage, retrieval, preservation, storage, control, and disposition of such information. It should also be noted that there must be controls in place to prevent the unintentional use of obsolete information. Clause number 8, operation. 8.1, operational planning and control. In order to meet the requirements of delivery of product and services, the organization needs to plan, implement, and control its processes. The first step is to determine the requirements for product and services, meaning what features the product or services will have. Then the organization needs to define how processes will be performed and what criteria the product or services need to meet to be accepted for release. Finally, the organization needs to determine the resources needed for the processes and the records needed to demonstrate the processes were carried out as planned. 8.2, the requirements for product and services requirements. For product and services which are closely related needs to have the communication with the customer. This communication must include information related to the products or services, handling inquiries, contracts or orders, customer feedback, handling and controlling customer property, and if needed, establishing specific requirements for contingency actions. Before offering the products or services to the customer, the organization needs to ensure that the requirements for the product and services are defined and the organization is able to deliver such product or services. Requirements for product and services include any applicable legislation and the requirements that the organization considers to be necessary. After receiving the order, the organization must, prior to delivery, review the requirements related to the product and keep records about the review. If the customer changes its requirement, there also must be reviewed and recorded. In case of changes, the organization must ensure that all documented information is amended and all relevant persons are aware of the changes. 8.3 Design and development of product and services. This clause refers to the design and development management, from the initial idea to final acceptance of the product. ISO 9000 explains that the term design and development are often used as synonyms and sometimes define different phases of overall design and development. 8.4 Control of externally provided processes, product and services. This robust title of the clause refers to purchasing. The purchasing includes product and services you acquire from suppliers and outsourced processes. The organization needs to establish and document criteria for supplier selection, which include how crucial the purchased product or service is to the quality of your product. Results of the supplier evaluation must be kept. In order to ensure that externally provided processes, product, and services do not have an adverse effect on the conformance of the organization's product and services, the organization needs to establish controls, including verification and other activities. As part of the controls, the organization needs to communicate to external providers its requirement for various specifications or various quality management system requirements. Now, clause 8 continues operation. Thank you. 8.4 Production and service provision. The production and service provision process needs to be performed under controlled conditions that will ensure that the product or services delivered in compliant with initial requirements. This includes a sufficient level of documentation like procedures, work instructions and records, monitoring and measurement equipments, appropriate infrastructure, etc. The organization must use suitable means to identify outputs when it is necessary to ensure product and services conformance. When the traceability is a requirement, the organization needs to control the unique identification of outputs and retain documented information necessary to enable traceability. In case when the organization uses property belong to a customer or external provider, it is required to identify, verify, protect, and safeguard this property. When the property of the customer or external provider is lost or damaged, the organization will have to report to the owner and retain documented information on what has occurred. 8.6 Release of product and services. Release of product and services shouldn't be performed until the organization ensures that the product and services are conforming to the requirements. Demonstrating the conformance can be done by documenting evidence of the conformance, in which it includes criteria for acceptance and information about the person who authorized release of the product or service. 8.7 Control of non-conforming outputs. Control of non-conforming output must be ensured that the non-conforming product must be prevented from unintended use or delivery. So the organization must identify and control non-conforming outputs that emerge from any phase of production or service delivery. Depending on the nature of the non-conformity, the organization can take one or more of the following actions: correction, segregation, containment, return, or suspension of the provision of product and services. It can also inform the customer, obtain authorization for acceptance under concession. Conformity to requirement must be verified when the non-conforming output is corrected. The organization also needs to keep documented information that describes the non-conformity, the action taken, concession obtained, and the authority deciding the action with respect to the non-conformity should be documented. Clause number 9, performance evaluation. 9.1, monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. The organization needs to determine what needs to be monitored and measured, how and when, as well as when the results will be analyzed. It is required to measure your own performance as a supplier in order to get information about users' observation and the extent to which you fulfill their requirements. Monitoring customer satisfaction levels must be a constant activity in order to determine trends, and because opinions about your performance can change. Information about customer satisfaction can be collected via phone, interviews, or questionnaire, direct contact with the user on the field, etc. Once the monitoring and measuring is performed and the results are gathered, the organization needs to analyze the results in order to evaluate conformity of product and services, degree of customer satisfaction, performance of QMS, effectiveness of actions taken to address risk and opportunities, and performance of external providers, and of course, need for improvement to the QMS. Internal audit. The goal of internal audit is not to determine non-conformity. Its goal is to check whether your QMS is in compliance with the requirement of ISO 9001 and the requirements of your organization, and is effectively implemented and maintained. At the end of the audit, you will get audit results by evaluating the data you collected during the audit. Audit results can be manifested as praise, recommendation for improvements, and non-conformities, either major or minor. Verification of actions taken may be needed, and in that case, the next step is to follow up audit. 9.3, management review. At least once in a year, top level management must review QMS in order to determine its appropriateness. Does it serve its purpose and satisfy the needs of the organization? Adequacy. Does the QMS conform to standard requirements? Applicability. Are activities performed according to the procedures? Effectiveness. Does it accomplish the planned results? This review must evaluate possibilities for improvement and needs for changing the QMS or quality policy and objectives. Considering the inputs for the management review, such as the results of the previous management reviews, changes in the context, customer satisfaction survey results, performance of the QMS and suppliers, etc. The top management must make decisions regarding opportunities for improvement and need for changes in the QMS and resources needed for the upcoming period. 10.1 General. Based on the results of the management review, the organization must make decisions and take actions that will drive towards continual improvement. Those actions can be in the form of corrective actions, training, reorganization, innovation, and so on. 10.2 Non-conformity and corrective action. Any non-conformity needs to be reacted upon by taking actions to control it and deal with the consequences. Once identified, a non-conformity should trigger a corrective action in order to remove the cause of the non-conformity and prevent its reoccurrence. The effectiveness of actions taken must be evaluated and documented, along with the originally reported information about the non-conformity, corrective action, and the results achieved. 10.3 Continual improvement. Continual improvement is a key aspect of the QMS. To achieve and maintain the quality management systems, suitability adequacy, and effectiveness regarding the organization's objectives. In conclusion, ISO 9001:2015 provides organization with guidance as to the quality of the product and services, with the ultimate goal of achieving customer satisfaction, delivering all of the clauses of the standard and truly understanding them can benefit your organization and drive your company on the road of continual improvement. Certification and compliance can bring reputational, motivational, and financial benefits to your organization through improved efficiency, quality of product and services, and avoiding non-conformities and customer complaints, along with improvements in your supply chain. All of these elements are closely related to your organization's ability to deliver satisfaction to your customers and fulfilling the expectations and wishes of your stakeholders. Having all this in mind, can your organization afford not to have ISO 9001:2015 certification? During this period of disruption caused by coronavirus COVID-19, many organizations are relying on remote working using conferencing facilities like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and Google Hangout. There are many business activities which can be completed remotely, allowing people to work from home and reduce organizations' carbon footprint in the process. We could find that even after coronavirus measures, organizations maintain high level of remote working. The general framework for management system standards implementation and auditing is changing. Current developments such as technological change, digitization, increasing demand for agile interactions, fast-paced business environment, and globalization have a great influence on the TIC sector, that's a testing, inspection, and certification. Computer-aided implementation and audit techniques can make a significant contribution to increasing the effectiveness and efficiency of consulting interventions and certification. Now then, let us have a look at the key steps to an effective and organized approach to achieving ISO 9000 compliance. Step number one, preparation. The initial phase should include gaining a true understanding of what the standard is and what it entails. This phase may involve appointing ISO 9001 champion among senior leaders. In addition, it's critical that senior leadership is on board and fully aware of the commitment and importance. Step 2, gap analysis. Conduct a thorough review of all existing quality policies, protocols, tools, and needs. This will help inform your responses to ISO standard requirements and form the basis of the core element of your solution, the quality management system. Assemble the team. It's smart to create a project team and leader that are well informed about your operations and quality. Scope, context, and objectives. Have the team create documents that define the scope of the project, any organizational context such as historical approaches, customer needs or regulatory mandates, and stakeholders. Quality risk assessment. A risk assessment plan is a component of your ISO 9000 process. The process needs to be outlined and data, results, and analysis must be recorded. Control risk to the quality. Once risks have been identified, the organization needs to plan for each one, treat, tolerate, terminate, or transfer the risk. These decisions need to be documented and reviewed with your ISO management system auditor. Train. Your employees needs to understand the importance of the certification and be trained on quality and its importance. Review and update. Check your documentation to ensure that your policies, processes, and procedures for your QMS are formatted correctly and meet the ISO 9000 requirements. Internal audit and metrics. Certification requires internal audits at planned intervals. It's also necessary to establish measurements, monitoring the system, and review of the results. And finally, my friends, external audits. These are two stages for ISO 9001. Stage one is to determine if your QMS has been developed in accordance with the ISO 9000 requirements. Stage two is a certification audit. where the auditor will do a thorough evaluation to determine if you are complying with the requirement of the standard. A remote management system implementation and audit, also known as e-implementation and audit, is exactly as the same as implementation and audit, but being using electronic means to remotely deliver training, guidance, consultancy, and obtain audit evidence and evaluate it objectively in order to determine the extent of conformity to the audit criteria. Remote intervention techniques are similar to those used in person, but for instance, you can share files via email, Google Drive, Box, etc. In addition, the company can provide documents by sharing its desktop screen or via video conference using Skype or Zoom, etc., which is also used for interviews together with the phone. Surprisingly, reviewing documents and records virtually can be even more effective than doing it so on site. Some areas that can present difficulties during a remote intervention involve manufacturing processes or product storage. In these cases, a remote interventions can use a live video or even a surveillance video to exchange necessary information. Remote audit methods are already mentioned in ISO 19011 guidelines for quality management systems. According to the standard, the nature and the scope of the remote audit methodology may differ. So, the consulting organization or certification body can use their own methods effectively to implement the interventions for the quality management system in terms of training and guidance and also the certification audits. Now let's see what are the benefits of remote auditing. It's saving time and money with the use of technology. Most data, if not all, is accessible from anywhere, such as cloud portal, or why waste so much time traveling to check documentation that can be available by other means? In this sense, there will be significant reduction in money and time spent on communicating to the audit location. In addition, interviews and even observations can be conducted through popular platforms like Skype or Zoom, which are regularly used by many of the companies already. Avoiding traveling to the difficult locations. Some locations to audits can be difficult to access for many reasons. Maybe they are just in an isolated area, or strict permits are needed to get in, or even visas sometimes are required if audits are conducted internationally. With a remote audit, you avoid these difficulties. Logistics related to auditing are not needed anymore. When conducting remote implementation, training, guidance, or audit interventions, usually organizations are relieved from logistics related to booking conference rooms and cleaning after audit team leaves or the management team's leaves, consulting team's leave, as well as worrying about audit team accommodation, interruptions to employees' regular workflow, and other related inconvenience experienced during an on-site audit. The audit team will be more efficient working from their home environment. The audit team will feel more comfortable since they will be able to use all the necessary tools such as high-speed internet, monitors, printers, etc. This way, the productivity will be sustainably increased in an e-audit in comparison with an on-site audit, needing fewer hours to complete a certain task. Let's look into the barriers of remote implementation and auditing. First, confidentiality, quality, and data protection. Ensure the agreement between the ISO certification body and your organization about CSDP issues. The agreement should be documented. Use of ICT. There should be a stable connection with good online connection quality. The ICT allows access to relevant documented information, including software, databases, records, etc. It is possible to make the authentication or identification of interviewed people, preferably with image. If observation of facility, processes, activity, etc., is relevant to achieve ISO management system implementation and auditing objectives, it is possible to access them by video. People in the organization, if it is possible to access and interview people relevant to the management system standard. People involved in the implementation and auditing should know how to use ICT tools to be used. Complexity of an organization. In case of complex organization, processes of products and services, a careful analysis of feasibility of remote implementation and auditing to be fully evaluated so that organization's conformity to all the requirements can be performed. Remote interventions have come to stay. Their advantages are unquestionable over the traditional methods. Although there are still some barriers to overcome, traditional audits, even when they have been well planned and executed, may cause a certain amount of inconvenience and disruptions to the organization. In addition, business managers are increasingly finding these interventions very attractive since reductions in cost and resources are undeniable using virtual methodologies. Also, remote interventions are an alternative for more efficient and productive methods of ISO training, consulting, and certification, not only from the point of view of your organization, but to the employees as well. Drawing on our practical information of quality management system know-how and proven management system consultancy and certification expertise, we can help you implement an ISO 9001 compliant QMS with ease. We provide 100% guarantee of successful certification when you engage our team. We provide generic benchmark templates for documenting quality management system that includes quality policy and quality objectives, quality policy manual, quality procedures manual, quality assurance and risk assessment plan, and records and format templates. Before implementing ISO 9000, one needs to consider the cost and project's length, which are further influenced by the detailed understanding of the implementation phases. Any cost is painful in tough economic times. Organizations that want to reduce the cost without compromising quality are looking at ISO. Implementation costs are driven by the perception of risk and how much risk an organization is prepared to accept. Four costs needs to be considered when implementing this type of projects. Internal resources, the system covers a wide range of business functions, including management, human resources, IT, production facilities, and quality. These resources will be required during the implementation of QMS. External resources, experienced consultants will save a huge amount of time and cost. They will also prove useful during internal audits and ensure a smooth transition towards certification. Certification, only a few approved certification agencies currently assess companies against ISO 9001, but fees are not much more than against other standards. Implementation. These costs depend largely on the baseline quality management system practices available within the organization. On average, implementation of a system such as this can take 1 to 4 months and depends largely on the standard of conduct and quality practice and management supports. Of course, from the top, the size and nature of the organization and the maturity of quality practices within the organization and existing documentation. Please do get in touch with us if you are seriously interested in implementation of QMS in your organization. We are here to assist you to acquire the certification with a purpose and value. Folks, at Standard Certification Council, we would like to keep you up to date on what we are saying, thinking, and doing during these difficult times. If you haven't already, you can like, share, and subscribe our channel. Thank you once again. Bye bye. Stay home and take care.